basically what we're going to talk about is gaps, right? Like why do gaps happen, right? Like what makes gaps happen? Why, like if you can trade gaps or not, if you can basically say that, okay, if this gap is going to get filled or it's just going to reject it, right? So those are very important things. I think people don't really understand the basic concept of gaps and why are gaps happening based on a technical perspective, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. And then what we're going to talk about is losses, right? Like what happens when you take losses, right? How can you actually learn from losses? Because the thing is, most people don't, like, okay, we're going to talk about losses, okay? Losses and gaps. So welcome everyone from groups far and wide in the Forex community. We have people from all over the place here on Twitch, 238 right now. I think it's going to increase to like maybe, oh well, if it goes to 200, perfect. We've broken the record today, right? Awesome. Okay, gaps. How do we see price move, right? Do you really know why price moves? Like, or like how can you see the price move, right? It's the broker. So what happens is you have the broker, right? You have the broker, and then you have your MT4. Now this is just going to be very, very simple explanation. You know, really, really easy to, like, very simple to understand, basically, right? So you have the broker. The broker allows you to see the price, right? So you see the price when the broker is open. You're seeing the price move, like price moves, like when you see the candles and all that stuff, right? But when is the broker closed? The broker are closed over the weekends, right? So when the broker is closed over the weekends, what happens to the price? Like, why does it gap? Why does the price gap over the weekend? Because it's moving over the weekend, and the only reason you don't see that is that because the broker is closed, right? When the broker is closed, you can't see price move, but price is moving over the weekend. Fundamental events are happening, right? Some news, like when you see Brexit news over the weekend, or you see some like wild stuff happening over the weekend. When on Sunday markets open, you see that there's a gap, right? It's because price moved over the weekend. So let's take this for an example, right? Let's take this for example. Let's say that price was moving like this, you know, came up like this, and it, like, on the weekend, on market close right over here, right? So now weekend came along, you know, and something happened. Let's say this is USD/JPY, right? Let's say this is USD/JPY, and Trump tweeted over the weekend something about, you know, Russia, and that caused the dollar to go down, right? So when the market opens, you see USD/JPY gap down right over here, like price starts from this point, right? So over the weekend, this news caused the US dollar to go down. That's why it gapped down. That's why the price moved down. Over the weekend, price moved down. We didn't see it because the brokers closed. That's why sometimes, you know, when you see these really high volatile news, and then you look on the 1 minute, you're like, holy fuck, this thing gapped down. Oh my God, the news was so bad. Same thing happens here, right? When you see gaps on news, what that means is that price moved way too fast for the broker to realize that, oh shit, okay, price moved here, okay, we gotta put this price on, right? That's why you see those small gaps like on the 1 minute. But when you're on the weekend, the broker's closed, like they don't have, like there's no price movement. So that's why you see the gaps, right? Especially when there's Brexit. Now, when you see Brexit news happening on the normal, like, you know, daily conditions of the market, it moves a lot. So that's why over the weekend, when there is some Brexit news, when the market opens back again, you see that huge gap, right? So that's why gaps happen. Let's see here. Let's see. So you think MT5 is better to use than MT4? That's totally up to you. You need to use both to really say that, like, what the fuck kind of question is that? You just gotta try it. Anyway, so we're gonna move on. here. Let's move on here. Okay, so how do we know if gaps will get filled or not, right? How do we know if gaps will get filled or not? So that is a very, very interesting question. What I want to say here is, I actually want to, let's take these notes. I hope you guys are taking notes, but you got to take these notes too, right? You got to take these notes too, because the thing is, when you have a gap, what you need to see is where is your higher time frame support resistance, right? That's what you need to see, because when you have a gap on a chart, I don't have an example here right now. If I do get an example of the chart, it's going to take some time. Actually, it's okay. I'm not getting an example. All right, perfect. So let me just draw the things. Okay, so let's say you have the 4-hour chart, right? Let's say you have the 4-hour chart, and then the chart is moving something like this, like this, like this, and then you have a gap, right? And let's say price gaps, price. So this is where the market closes. This is the 4-hour chart. Okay, remember. So this is where the market closes, and then price gaps up over here, right? So price gaps up over here. So now we have a gap. So now what you're going to do is you're going to look at the higher time frame whenever you see a gap, and you're going to see that, okay, where was the most recent support or resistance, right? That's the first thing you're going to do. Step one, you will identify nearest support and resistance, okay? So what you're going to say is, okay, if it gapped from the bottom up, you're looking for the nearest support. Make sense? So you look to see, okay, well, okay, this is probably support, right? You can say, okay, this is probably support right over here, because look what happened here, right? Price came down, it made a support, bounced up, whatever, came down. It should have done a retest, but like whatever, it came down for the sake of simplicity. It went up and then market closed, right? Market closed, and then you have Saturday and Sunday, right? Saturday happened, Sunday happened, some news came out, and then price was moving over the weekend. So you're just visualizing price move over the weekend, right? And when the market opened, you have a gap right here. Price came up right over here. So what do you think? What are the chances that this gap is going to get filled? What are the chances this gap is going to get filled? I think there's a less chance this gap is going to get filled, because this is a 4-hour chart and you have support right over here. So even if price comes down, it's going to bounce from it, because this is going to be your first touch on support, right? Maybe, hey, an hour or two later, it can like break it down and go fill the gap, right? But you got to look at the higher time frame support resistances. No, there's a question. Would you not mark wherever the price gap to as a zone? No, because that's where the market closed. It's not like, because let's say if price is in the middle of a zone and the market closes, that's not going to be the zone, because the market closed when price was not at a zone, right? Here, the fucking market closed when price was not at a zone. Make sense? So that's why this gap is not going to get filled. Because this is where the market closed, you got support, and then you got this support here again. So now this support, it becomes resistance if price is moving up, correct? I hope everyone says, yeah, correct, because that makes sense. Because if price will go up, you will say, okay, it's coming up, it's going to do it's going to, support. This one will turn resistance, and then we're going to head down. So now, when price has gapped up, that means it has broken this support. It has broken this support right here. So when it comes down from the top, like after it gapped, it's probably gonna bounce. Because look at this. This was like price moving over the weekend. It gapped up, right? So now this becomes support. Went up, So if there's like more momentum or whatever, something happens, it will break down and fill the gap. So this is the instance where gaps are not going to get filled. Makes sense? Like I wouldn't really recommend it. So now let's look at how gaps are going to get filled. Makes sense? So why will a gap get filled? Right? So some people are talking about how GJ went up to resistance on Sunday and then it shot back down, right? So what happened? Price was here, it made a support on the 1 hour. This is GJ 1 hour, right? And price gapped all the way down here, you know? So now you got this support turn resistance. It came up, it fucking tapped it, and it went back down. Because whatever happened, gaps, news, whatever, right? Price will always respect the higher time frame, what's that called? Zone, high time frame zone. Price will always respect the higher time frame zone. And if you guys aren't making notes, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Because if I was you, I would be making notes. Because some people, you know, they're very impatient. They want to trade gaps, you know, and then they trade gaps. So sometimes they get fucked, sometimes they don't get fucked. How does the market move on the weekend when it's closed? That's a very good question. How does the market move over the weekend when it's closed? Because the market's moving because things are happening in the world, right? And whatever happens in the world, that affects price. That's what happens. Yeah, so this is going to be recorded. It's going to be on Twitch too, right? So whatever happens in the world, it affects price. And when price is moving. Price is moving. That's why. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. Let's see what next slide we have. Oh, for some reason we have a blank screen. Okay, perfect. So that was the end. Yeah, so Ted said that the central banks are closed. So that was the end of the gaps section. So now we're going to talk about, like, okay, why gaps can we get filled, right? Why gaps can we get filled? So we got, oh, that's not a straight line. So let's say we have support, we have resistance, right? And this is your 4-hour chart. This is your 4-hour chart. So price came in, did this little dance, like, went up right here, came down, and then it stopped. Right? It stopped, and what happened was, now this is where the market closed. Right? So the market closed. So if this is a 4-hour chart, these bumps, these are on the 1 hour. Make sense? These are on the 1 hour. So now what you're saying is that, okay, so now price opened somewhere here. Over the weekend, price opened somewhere here. This gap was, let's say, 10, 12 pips, right? So now what you're doing is you're like saying, okay, perfect. So this is what happened. So now you look left and you see this resistance area, which becomes support. So will this gap get filled? First of all, I don't recommend trading gaps anyway because fucking the spreads are wild. So I don't recommend that at all. Yeah, so this gap is going to get filled because now price is at support. Price gap down and gap down at like 1 hour or 4 hour support. And, there are higher chances. It's not like it's going to 100% get filled, but there are like higher chances that it's going to go back up and potentially might go back up here too. Yeah, the spreads are crazy. There's no reason for you to trade gaps. Make sense? So now we're going to go to the fun part. The fun part is how to analyze losses. I was actually very excited to talk about this. Like, so fucking excited, man. I made these slides 15 minutes before the webinar. So, I was just so excited about this. yeah, like around 6 a.m. Eastern to 6:30 a.m. Eastern is when the spreads get back to normal, so that's best. So okay, how to analyze losses? Everybody takes losses. 90% people here take losses, you know, and you think you're doing things about those losses, you know, taking extra courses or whatever, but you're not doing anything. How to handle losses, right? So I want 1 or 2 word answers. 1 or 2 word answers. How do you guys handle losses? 2 or 3. 2 or 3 word answers. Oh yeah, some cry. Okay. Drink, reevaluate. Oh, treat it as an expense. Okay, perfect. A lesson. A lesson. Yeah, a lesson. But like, how do you learn that lesson? How do you make sure that lesson doesn't happen? Suicide. Oh, smoke a joint. Perfect. That's what I do. Walk away. Journaling. Perfect. Journaling. Reanalyzing why you took that. Yeah, that's interesting. Reanalyzing why that. Those are a lot of words, man. How could you turn it into a win next time? Yep. Perfect. Cutting losses is key. Cutting losses is key, but like, how do you really cut your losses? How do you make sure these losses don't happen? Okay. So let's move on. Let's see this. How do you make sure these losses don't happen? How do you? Okay, so what is a loss? A loss is not because you didn't know what happened. A loss is basically something that you didn't see, right? Something that you didn't take into consideration before you took a trade, right? There's always something, right? And how does a loss get worse? Right? The only reason the loss is going to get worse is that if you have a predetermined risk, right? So let's say that so this happens to most people, right? Most people. This happens to most people that if you take a sell, right? If you take a sell, your stop is like 10 pips, price starts to go up, you know, and then you see an imaginary zone, right? Your mind can play tricks. You're going to see an imaginary zone. You're going to say, okay, this zone is next to my stop loss. I'm going to move this bitch up to 15 pips. You move your stop loss up. Now, whenever you move your stop loss up, that's the end of it. That's the end of the trade. You have just crossed a insanity barrier right over there. And whenever you move a stop loss, I used to move my stops a lot too. You know, I was way beyond the insanity barrier. So now I'm back. So you move your stop loss, right? Price moves up again, and you're like, okay, so I'm gonna wait for the fucking. Let's say you took this trade on 1 hour time frame or the 30-minute, and you start looking at the daily, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the daily candle to close. So you move your stop loss higher, looking at the daily time frame, to 25 pips. You're like, all right, so now we have a 25 pip stop loss, right? So now, some people who are more disciplined than others, they'll close at 25 pips. But some people who are not disciplined, they're going to say, yo, okay, huddle. I'm a swing trader. Started off with a scalp of 10 pips down over here, and now we're a swing trader. 35 pips. You know, or no stop loss. Fuck, remove stop losses. That's how your stop gets worse. Right? Take a note. Yeah, swing trader too, you know, like the point is you can't move your stops. You just cannot move your stops. Right? So, and okay, so there are only 2 reasons why these losses get worse, right? One was like moving your stops. Make a note of that. Never move your stops. The second one is, this is really important. Second one is overtrading, right? And I think most people look overtrading from a very different, well, like, you know, it's like a good perspective, but I think there's another perspective you can look at overtrading with, is like, let's say that OT is overtrading, because I have a mouse. I'm just going to wish I had a pen. So OT is overtrading. So what's overtrading in your perspective? right? Overtrading is, oh, you know, I took 10 trades a day. That's overtrading. Or I took 15 trades a day. Is that overtrading? Or I did 5 trades a day, right? So some people will say, okay, this is overtrading. Yes, someone said revenge trading. This, if you took 15 trades a day based on what you are really following, then I think that's on the borderline of being fine. It's not totally fine, but it's like, meh, it's okay. But like, the thing is, the most important factor is that some people do revenge trading. That's even worse, revenge trading, right? So let's take this for an example, right? Let's take this for an example. So you are scalping, right? You see a 1 hour candle. You see a 1 hour candle. You see this 1 hour candle, and then you're like, okay, now this 1 hour candle just started, okay? This 1 hour candle just started. So now you're like, okay, the trend is up, right? The trend is up. And what you do is you're like, okay, this is going to go up. So when our candle starts, you take a buy, right? You take a buy, it goes into a little bit of a drawdown, and then it starts to go a little bit lower. You know, it starts to go a little bit lower. Now, how many people would close their buys and take sells? Because it has reached a minor support and it's about to break. It seems like it's about to break. You close your buys and you take sells. You're like, oh, fuck, this is a sell. I'm going to take sell. Happens, right? And then what happens? And then price starts to retrace. Price starts to retrace and you figure out, oh, shit, this is a buy, not a sell. Oh, my God. So you close the sell and then you take a buy. Right? Now price starts to go up. Price is heading up. It heads up, right? It goes to your break even and it starts to go higher and you're like, okay, perfect. It's a buy. It starts to go higher, right? And now what you're starting to do is you're like, okay, you know what? We're going to go in profits and whatever. Now the 1 hour candle has still not closed, right? So sometimes what this volatility happens and stuff happens, you close your buys, you take sells, right? I'd say 70% of the time people would change their biases. The thing is, like, you cannot change your bias 4 or 5 times within one hour candle. That's when you do revenge trading. That's when you really overtrade, right? Because you're changing your bias 4 or 5 times within one hour candle. People do this. You know, look at your trading history. Sometimes when I look at my trading history, I've done that too, right? You just can't change your bias over and over again. It's just bad for business because what's happening? You're paying commission, you're giving away losing trades once, twice, thrice, you know, maybe 4 times. So the thing is, when you find yourself not being like confident, just take one or 2 chances and that's it. Then just close the trade and wait for the 1 hour candle to close. Right? Exactly. Like when you mentally know that, okay, I just took a buy, I closed my buy, and now I took a sell, and now I've closed my sell, and I'm about to take a buy. Stop. That's madness. Can't do that. That's just stupid. You can't change your bias. Right? So I always tell people have one bias for every 4 hour candle. Make notes. You know, so you just need to have like one bias. And that's going to help you a lot because when you have one bias, what's going to happen? Even if that bias is wrong and you hit your stop loss, perfect, fine. You know, you had one loss. You didn't close once, twice, and thrice. You just had one loss. Perfect. Okay. Now we're gonna wait for this 1 hour to close or the next one, and then look for a better trade. Right? If you do that, your losses are gonna minimize. You know, 60% people will not do that. 60% people will just remember this. They're like, okay, perfect. And next week they're gonna start doing the same shit over again. It's gonna happen. Trust me. If you want to bet, if someone wants to bet with 1 to 5 odds, Perfect. It's gonna happen. Yeah, so exactly. So someone said when you change your bias, it fucks with your mentality. Yeah, so what you need to do is you just need to stay out of it, man. That's too bad. So let's look here. So does a loss means that you're stupid? Tell me. Is that what the loss means? Does a loss mean like when you take a loss and then you take another loss and then you take another loss? Like, does that mean that you're stupid? Listen, that does not mean you're stupid. Because every one of you, you can like the idea is that you need to protect yourself from yourself. That's that you are your biggest enemy, right? Because what happens is that when you take a loss and then you take another trade, you take another loss, you take another trade, you take another loss. So what happens now mentally? What's happening is that your mind is getting a little numb to all those losses, right? Because now you get to a point where it doesn't make any sense. That's what happens. Because you take a buy, you're like, okay, it's not a buy, it's a sell. You take a sell without no rhyme or reason. You close your sell, you take a buy. Right? That doesn't mean you're stupid. That means that you're not thinking logically. You're not being rational about things. Right? Because the thing is, the market is going to do whatever the fuck it wants to do. Right? Because now you need to say, okay, so I tried once, it didn't happen. Let's just calm down. Let's just wait. And then you tried twice and it didn't happen. So let's just calm down and just relax and just let's look at it like a man, let's be reasonable and let's look at the chart again and not just let's just wait, because you get paid to wait. Make a note of that. You get paid to wait. I think Alex said that first. Alex, the Santos, I don't know. I think he did. But yeah, like you get paid to wait, because if you took one loss, if you're a really patient trader, you took one loss, now you're waiting for an hour to close, you're like, okay, you know what, I just have to reevaluate. Like, I'm not stupid, but there's something I missed, so I just have to reevaluate. So now I'm just gonna wait for an hour. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means that you're not handling yourself, and you need to handle yourself. You need to put yourself in check. Right? You need to say, okay, why? Okay, listen, I gotta relax. I have two personalities. I think I have two personalities. One is called Rakil and the other one is called Raja Banks. This is Raja here, because Rakil, he doesn't have the confidence. He doesn't have the confidence to do runtime webinars or to come on Twitch and do trades. But when Raja's here, Raja knows how to get shit done. Right? So that's why when you sometimes see on Twitch, there are like a couple losses, that's Rakil, that's not Raja. So when Raja comes, Raja just wants to just like relax, lay back and be like, okay, you know what, we just gotta wait. Oh yeah, that's Raja. All right. So now when you take a loss, right, what happens? Like you start looking at things like, oh man, this fucking price was at support. Why did I take a loss? I took a buy, they say buy support. Why did I take a loss? Because there's a probability of things, there's a probability that if price is at a higher time frame support, let's say 1 hour, if you're scalping, 1 hour is pretty good. If that's 1 hour support, there's an 80% chance. If it's not 80, if 80 is too high, I would say there's a 70% chance. Please take notes of this, please. I beg you, because people ask me stupid questions. Yeah, there is such things as stupid questions. People, they say there's no such thing as stupid questions. They haven't heard stupid questions. Okay, so there's a 70% chance that price is going to bounce from here, right? 70% chance. So if this breaks, that's just the probability of it breaking. That's just the probability of it not working. Like, you can't say. Also, there was something you missed at support. We're going to talk about that later. We're going to do a simulation as well, I think for like half hour or something. So we're going to try to take some losses, and then we're going to try to analyze those losses and see why, how we could have made this better, right? So it's not like the market hates you or you're bad. It's just like there's something you missed, because at first, you're at support, so naturally you're going to say, yeah, like buy support. But when you look at the small time frames, there are some things that you might have missed, which you only find out later on, because like everything's great in hindsight, right? Everything's great and makes sense when you look at it after like 2-3 hours. It makes sense, right? But that's the thing, right? So you must have missed something. So I think that's very, very important. Oh, we have 181 viewers on Twitch. I said we're gonna reach 200. Oh, 185. Okay, right? So market doesn't hate you. You probably missed something, because people always say, oh, like price was at support, price was at resistance, or let's say that you took a or let's say that you took a sell, and let's say you took a let's draw a new one. Let's say you took a buy, like and price was in bearish trend, and it broke support, hit your stop loss, and you're crying about, oh man, but the daily was bullish, right? And I still took a loss. The candle were bearish. Why did it happen? This and that. You start asking all these questions, and do you think that helps you? Do you think that really helps you? What does that make you into? That makes you into a complainer, right? Yeah. So someone asked that if you got a stop loss because entry too early. Here's the thing about having a stop loss, saying that you have an early entry. Here's the thing about that. Let me just get on that context. An early entry means, and you got stopped out. Okay, so let's say you took an early entry and you got stopped. Price is coming down. You see the support. Price is coming down, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy. Boom, you take a buy. Okay, you take a buy. And this is your zone right over here, and you have just taken a buy right here, and your stop is 10 pips right over here. So what's gonna happen? Will this stop get wasted? Fuck yeah, it's gonna get wasted. It's gonna get wasted, come back in the zone. And what's gonna happen? It's gonna come back in the zone. You got stopped out from buys here. What you're gonna do? You're gonna see it coming down. You're gonna take sells. You're like, oh boy, we're coming down. This candle is bearish. It's gonna break this zone. You take a sell. And what happens? You become the wick, because it's at support and goes up. And before you realize it's a buy, you close your sell over here, and then you take a buy. You're like, fuck yeah, we're going up. And what happens? It starts to retrace a little bit. Become the wick again. Has this ever happened to you? I'm pretty sure it has happened to you, man. This happens to everybody. Fuck. When you're starting trading, this happens to you. You become wick multiple times. That's like double penetration for a new trader. It's like a market double. It's not like the market's doing that. It's you. You're double penetrating yourself, right? Because now you're asking questions like, because if you take a buy, okay, if you took a buy right over here, and it retraced and hit your stop because your stop was now above the zone again, you're going to say, oh man, but this candle was fucking bullish. This candle was bullish. It should have gone up. So because now you're not thinking logically. You're just saying, but it was bullish, should have gone up, man, crying like a child, like this is complaining. This is not studying your losses or learning from your losses. That's fucking complaining. Right? So we're going to look at the opposite of that. Like how can you make it opposite? So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at that after I have a sip of coffee. This is Nescafe coffee. Nescafe 2-minute coffee. Okay. All right. So what can we learn from a loss? I forgot I even had this point at the bottom here. What can we learn from a loss, right? So what we're going to learn from losses is what we're going to see in the next slide, right? That what you should be doing to learn from a loss. So what you got to do is you got to visualize your loss to a win. It sounds pretty stupid, but it's a thing. It's a legit thing. You know, you got to visualize a loss to a win because 70% of the time I'm just visualizing candles moving, right? Because you gotta look at it this way. When you have MT4, right? When you have MT4 or MT5 or whatever, you know, and you're seeing candles form, those candles are for retail traders, right? Those candles are for retail traders. Institutions and banks, they look at price. They don't give a fuck about candles or bars or line charts. They don't care. They just look at price. They want certain prices. They take certain prices, and there are certain levels they want to go to, right? We see candles, and we are supposed to trade from candles. And that's a fact, right? So you can always visualize candles. Hey, man, if you visualize a 4-hour bullish candle, that's a lot of pips. That's just it. Just gotta visualize candles. We're not gonna talk about visualizing candles because that's not what the webinar is about. It's about gaps and taking losses. All right. So when you take a loss, you gotta ask these questions, right? The first question you gotta ask is, why was I wrong? Right? If you took a sell, okay, because like if you took a trade, we're gonna look at examples here like soon. I hope you're not in a rush. Okay, perfect. I hope no one's in a rush. I'm not in a rush. So if you have support, right, and it actually we've talked about support a lot. Let's talk about resistance. So price goes to resistance, right? It goes up and then it comes down and then it just comes down. And when it breaks up, you take a buy as a retest, right? So now you got to ask yourself a question. Okay, why was I wrong? Why did it go down? You know, you can't say, okay, you know, but it was a retest here, you know, fucking, it should have gone up, trend is bullish, blah, blah, blah. You know, no, that's not going to help you at all. That's not going to help you. You got to dive down in this chart and you got to see that, okay, how was this a sell? You know, why was this not a retest? Why did this retest not happen? Okay, how could I have taken a sell? Right? That's what you got to keep asking yourself. Okay, like if you had sells, you know, and you got stopped out, you got to say that, okay, how could I have taken a buy? How was this a buy? Right? Because hey, if I would have taken a buy, I would have had a profitable trade. Because it doesn't matter if price was going down. It doesn't matter what I think. You know, price went its way, and how could I have been on that right side? You got to forget about like, you know, why you took that loss. You got to start thinking, okay, how could I have been on the right side? That's a very important mind shift you have to make. These new things I come up with, man, these fake outs, these fucking gladiator candles, all this bullshit, it comes from analyzing losses and seeing like, okay, how could I have been on this right side? And I just make up these stupid names. That's all I do. That's all I do all day, you know. Let's look at this next one here. Yeah, see? So how was this the right trade? Right? You got to start looking at it that way. That how could you have seen things differently? If you go in the smaller time frames or is that on the high time frames, you had to look at it from the right perspective because you were wrong. It doesn't matter why you were wrong. You were just wrong because market is always right. Market is always right. Remember that. Market doesn't owe you nothing because market is always right. When people message me saying, but bro, we have support here, I just don't know how to answer that because yeah, of course you have support here. Market did what it had to do. Market's always right. And you gotta see how can you be on the right side. That's what you gotta start working towards. How can you be on the right side all the time? And when you start working towards that, you start to minimize your losses and you start to adapt patience. Make sense? Because market is always going to do what it has to do. Be it news, let's say news is positive and price drops. You know, this market just knows you can't fuck with the market. You can't complain. You can't complain that, yo, but you were bullish, you know, how can you go bearish? You can't do that. Because it's always going to do what it has to do. You just have to put yourself in a position that you can say, okay, you know, I'm not going to say, but I'm going to say, okay, how could I have been on the right side? Thanks for saying that. Can you put those exact words on your IG page? Oh, I forgot what I said. Can you just message her again? So I know. Fuck, man. Can you talk about lack of discipline? Yeah. When you have lack of discipline, you start to get disciplined. Come on. You know? It's like when you go to the gym, right? You go to lose weight. So the gym guy tells you, hey man, just eat healthy. Eat healthy, and what's gonna happen is when you eat healthy, you're gonna lose weight. But if you don't eat healthy, you're not gonna lose weight. You're still gonna be fat. You know, so it's your discipline that you eat healthy and you lose weight. Same thing with trading. You don't take too many trades and your account stays healthy. You take too many trades, your account takes a beating. Yeah, you know, because Mark is always right? You probably missed something. So what did you miss? That's what you got to see. Right, let's go to the next one. Take notes. Yes, take notes. So we're going to look at some examples, right? We're going to look at, I'm going to take like a 2-3 minute break, but we're going to do some simulation here, and we're going to try to take some losses, and then we're going to try to learn from those losses the correct way. We're going to see, someone asked the question, Raja, when is the best time to enter? I'm going to let everyone deal with that. Everyone else deal with that. You know, I'm not going to answer. When's the best? Okay, I'm going to answer that because then, you know, someone's going to say Raja, then asshole. Okay. Best time to enter is at zones, you know, because look at it this way. You have support. Let me just draw support. You have support and you have resistance. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this. So now price is coming down, you know. Now, when price is coming down, you got to tell yourself, okay, where will I place my stop loss? Okay, if price is coming down, where are you going to put your stop loss? You're probably going to put your stop loss below the zone, right? Below the zone, you're going to put your stop loss. So now you got to measure how many pips of a stop loss do I want, right? So I want examples here from everyone here. How many pips are your stop losses? Like, what's like an okay stop loss for you guys? 10. Oh, some said 20. 43 pips. You're trading USD ZAR? 30 pips. Okay. Oh, nice. 10 to 50 pips. Someone said 10 to 50 pips. Brother, you got to relax on that 10 to 50 range. 10 to 50 is a big fucking range. Right? That's a big fucking range. So now, okay, so check this out. Right? So let's say this is a 1 hour time frame. Okay? Check this out. This is going to save your life, hopefully. This is a 1 hour time frame. And you're like, okay, so I got to place my stop below this zone, and my stop loss should be, let's say you say my stop loss should be 10 pips. So now you measure 10 pips. You're measuring 10 pips and you're like, oh, 10 pips is right over here. Okay, perfect. So now, when will you enter? Will you enter over here, or will you enter when price comes down here? Obviously, you're going to enter when price comes down here, right? Because if price comes down here, you take a buy. Now your stop is 10 pips and it's below the zone. Right? So now you're following your plan. Like this is like you're following a risk plan now, right? So now your stop loss is below the zone and it's 10 pips and you have a nice entry, right? If you're saying, okay, you want like a 7 pip stop loss, so then what are you doing? You're waiting for price to maybe come down over here. You take a buy, you know, your stop is below the zone, because if price breaks below the zone, it's going to take you out and then it's going to continue moving down, right? If it's like theoretically speaking. So this is very, very important, right? Also, it depends on the time frames you're looking at. So now let's say this is your 4-hour time frame, or let's say this is your daily. Okay, let's talk about swing trading. Let's say this is your daily time frame. Where is my pen? There is daily time frame. Oh, someone said good morning. Good morning, Vietnam. Their morning just started. All right.